Robert Bergdorf of the law firm Nixon Peabody here tonight on behalf of Verizon Wireless for the 135-foot cellular monopole application 122 Wildflower Drive, which is being proposed in order to provide coverage to the Webster north-south. Thank you. Pursuant to Verizon Wireless's FCC license and pursuant to federal and state laws of public utility. All that's detailed in the application. It's very late. I'm not going to go, unless the board wants, I'm not going to go through the application. You've been through before the limited flexibility, how a search area works, and there'll be plenty of time for that at subsequent meetings. So again, unless you want, I won't belabor that. It's all in the application. We will have that chance again, but happy to do that, including going through the search area if you'd like. Is anybody still here for the cell tower? Because we lost most of the people, I think, who had questions, right? Nobody's really left. Okay. A lot of this was for them. I'll just hit the history. We started this project about 4 years ago, and the town asked Verizon Wireless for this search area to go to Creekside on town property. We worked with the town for over 2 years to try to accommodate their request, but when it came time to approve the tower, 3 of the 5 town board members elected not to proceed with a lease. Now, we thought there was a good site, but it's not up to us. And we don't frankly care where we are, as long as it works without unreasonable cost or unreasonable delay. That's the law. Town had an absolute right as a landlord to say no. An absolute right. And that was its decision, and we respect that. Does not have the right to refuse to zone a site, however. The lease was denied, and that's fine, but zoning is different. Zoning has certain federal and state protections. And by denying the lease on the town site, this board understood that we would be back with a private site. And we talked about the search area. This is a tough search area. There are wetlands all over the place, and it is filled with just small residential lots. So we are extremely limited as to where we could go. But in the end, that was the town's decision. So we came back with a private site, as was clear what happened. So there are really just 2 things I think I'll hit tonight because of the late hour. One is effective prohibition, and the other is I'm going to touch on the health effects one last time, and then we're done with that one. Effective prohibition, a number of folks came out tonight and they said, just turn it down. We don't want it. I think somebody even said, we're the pretty girl at the dance. We can say no. It doesn't work that way. That is not the law. What they don't understand is that is not an option for municipality, and they should not hold that against you. Your hands are tied by federal and state law to a large degree. Essentially, it's the same under both federal law as an FCC licensed carrier and under state law as a public utility. A municipality cannot prohibit the carrier from having a site that works in the coverage area. However, it may reasonably regulate. That means 2 things. One is on site. It can impose reasonable regulation, whatever that may be. We move sites around, we landscape, so forth on the site, reasonable regulation. The second is it can pick between viable sites. And this board did that. This board denied the first site, and it knew that we would end up back to what was really the last viable site that we could find. That search area has been scrubbed well, and that's all in the materials. And I bet everybody who stood up tonight and complained about cell towers has a cell phone, and they all rely on them. They expect them to work when they want them to work. And under Verizon Wireless's FCC license, it must provide adequate service. It has no choice. They don't work on magic. They only function by a network of very carefully placed, location-sensitive towers that are not too tall, not too short, not too close to the neighboring cells, and not too far away from the neighboring cells. It's a nightmare for the RF engineers. The courts have consistently held that community opposition is not a valid basis for a denial. Citing the Bible, that's irrelevant. You can have as many names on a petition as you want. That's irrelevant. And the public should understand that that's what you're facing. And I understand that that's tough for a board. On the health effects, a number of folks are continuing to raise them. And we're going to see it again because we know back in July, at the previous site, we had a lot of people coming out on perceived health effects. I'll make 2 points on that topic. The first, again, this is fully preempted by federal law from being considered in any local zoning process, period. Entertaining or allowing exploration of this topic is a violation of federal law. It's not a topic for this board, and Verizon Wireless will enforce its rights in that respect. But I hate to leave it at that, because some people actually believe this, and I don't want them to be concerned when there is no basis for it. If anybody's actually interested in the science, we had somebody got up here and said, look, facts don't matter. If we feel that it's bad, that's all that matters. That's not how it works. The facts are, and we submitted this, and we'll incorporate it by reference to the record. We submitted it back with the other application last summer. We gratuitously, because it's preempted, we don't have to, submitted information in this regard. Anybody who's interested in those facts, we invite them to look at it. But the second point I'll make here on health effects, and which always makes most sense to me, and it's just basic common sense, is this is a radio signal. That's all it is. We've been broadcasting them for over 100 years. The only difference between this and any other run-of-the-mill radio signal is this is extremely, extremely weak. And we've gone through that as to why it has to be weak. Sometimes you only cover a mile in either direction. They've got to stop. They can't go further. They can't overlap and interfere with the neighboring cells. Extremely weak. So if somebody gets up here and says they're concerned about this, they better be far more concerned about every TV station, every radio station, some are operating in megawatts, every police dispatch, every tow truck, all operating at much stronger powers than this. One woman stood up here tonight and said she was concerned about it, and she was using her phone. I'm sure she's never checked the power density of pressing a phone to your head versus a cell tower. So a lot of facts are just being ignored here. It violates common sense. We had neighbors come out the last time with all kinds of odd arguments, talking about asbestos, finding weird Maha sites saying that they cause cancer. I've had 3 towns in the last few years where people have gotten up and said cell phones cause COVID. There is no basis for that. These are the kinds of things that come up. So we're done talking about it. We're going to rely on federal law. It's a violation of federal law to entertain it or to explore it. It would be reversible error. There's nothing more we can add, nothing more we're going to add on that topic. And I think the last point I want to make is Miss Vino still here? Did she leave?
Address the board, please.
Is Miss Vino still here? I just want to. She had some comments.
Can you make me follow the rules, please? Vino,
Yes, please address the board.
That's right. Well, let me mention that she had some very good comments, and I just wanted to address those because she asked appropriately that we supply an alternatives analysis. We call it site selection analysis. That's been supplied. That's here in detail in Exhibit G where we've scrubbed the site. She asked that we provide RF engineer analysis. That's Exhibit F in detail. She asked that we provide visual impact statements. Those are in here. Exhibit K with the photo sets. The only reason I raise that is I hope somebody will get this to her or anybody else. It sounds like the public is not aware of this submission, and that's why I raised it. So if there's anybody in the audience who is connected with most of the people, I hope they can get that message out. A lot of it's here. She asked about property values and financial input. That is not in there because it's legally irrelevant, and we're not going to put it in there. She might have asked about health effects. Again, legally irrelevant. We're not going to put it in there. She did ask about enhanced buffering. That is a legitimate issue, and we'll deal with that at the planning board level, presumably. And we are happy to entertain any reasonable mitigation efforts that are site specific. And I think the last thing she raised, and I just thought she really hit a lot of good points, was the Creekside site. And again, this is just a good example. She thought the Creekside site was better. And what often happens in these sites, and again, a long time, is we end up trading one set of neighbors for another. And the board has to make the hard decision of which set of neighbors it's going to disappoint. But in the end, we can't go away. We won't go away. And the law allows us to have a site in the search ring, which works from a technical standpoint, that is available without unreasonable cost and without unreasonable delay. I'm not going to go any further. It's late. We're going to get another bite at the apple here with this when we come back to this board. And I know we've got to go to planning and zoning. I just want to get those. And again, a lot of the folks here who raised issues are not here to hear any of that, unfortunately. So I don't know if the board has any questions tonight before we go to the planning board. I'm happy to answer them now. Obviously, happy to respond to information that's also sent to us by the town, as we've done in the past. And let's leave it at that for the night, unless you've got any questions.
Nick, John,
No, I'm all set.
Jen, Garrett?
I mean, another great packet, a thrilling read, just super exciting. Not a question, it's just food for thought because it's getting late. Just encourage you to, in hearing the residents' thoughts, consider lower tower height, distributed small cell deployment, minimum visual impact, setbacks, buffering, potential stealth, or you said it, a little bit of magic. Just, think about those things you can do to make this less intrusive to Webster residents as it goes.
Yeah, and I think we'll go through that, and that's typically a planning board thing.
That's why I just wanted to throw it out there.
Yep.
Yeah, you made reference to some couple of residents' concerns that didn't really feel you needed to address them because it wasn't legal. You might want to reconsider that statement.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kay, I couldn't hear you.
Something that's not, in your opinion, legal, you might want to consider, addressing those if it's not strictly legal.
I'm sorry, I don't follow.
All right, never mind.
I'm happy to respond to it. I just didn't. Are you suggesting we supply information that's not legal?
No, you're saying that some of the questions that were posed weren't legal. In other words, field of law, so you're just going to ignore them. You may want to reconsider that.
Well, we did. The health effects, for instance,
Right.
are not legal. We have provided extensive information, as you may recall from the previous.
All right, because maybe I misunderstood you.
Yeah.
Because I thought you said you're not going to address those. So maybe I misunderstood.
We did already. I think we are done going into, unless the board has a question, we are done addressing the health effects for the public. We provided the information. Nobody's
Okay.
reading it. We were at the other meeting where nobody read any of the stuff we submitted. And apparently nobody's read any of this.
What meeting are you referring to?
On this site, we provided health information at the previous site, which I've incorporated by reference. The
Okay.
record's all there. Extensive stuff.
Okay.
And apparently they have not, nobody's looked for this information either, which we spent a lot of time, obviously,
I don't have it.
and addresses a lot of the concerns that were raised.
In your packet.
Pick it up.
Let me ask you a question of Kyle. So from a procedural standpoint, goes from here down to the planning board, then it comes back here?
That is correct.
Okay.
Tonight is just an administrative
Gotcha.
referral. It's a quirk in the code. It's got to come here for referral to the planning board. Planning board will do site plan review and then send it back if they approve it with their recommendation on both the site plan and the
Gotcha.
special use permit.
Thank you.
Yeah, if there's nothing else, I will make a motion to refer the proposed Webster North Cell Tower at 1222 Wildflower Drive, tax ID number 65.05-1-48, to the planning board for the purpose of conducting site plan review.
I'll second.
Supervisor Sheldon,
Aye.
Councilman Hunter,
Aye.
Councilman Cahill,
All right.
Councilwoman Wright. Aye. Councilman Wagner.
Aye.
Thank you.
Bob.
One procedural question. Does this town typically do single agency review with the boards or coordinated review under seeker?
Coordinated review
Coordinated. And typically the lead agency is
is the planning board. So as
planning board?
as part of the resolution, bear with me here.
Come on, Kyle.
Yes, that the town board will consent to the planning board being the lead agency for the purpose of seeker review. That should be part of, if the board elects to, that should be part of the motion.
So is that part of this resolution as a matter of?
That's, I'm recommending.
I'm
that
fine.
that you amend the resolution to
Okay.
consent to the planning board.
Yeah, I'll amend, conducting site plan review. All right, an amendment that the town board consents to any request of the town planning board that the town planning board be designated the lead agency for coordinated review procedures under the proposed action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act.